Every criminal has a beginning, and sometimes that beginning is heartbreakingly innocent. This is the story of a small child, born into a world that was never kind to him. His name doesn't matter, because his story could be anyone's, a forgotten soul growing up in the shadows of society. He was just 6 when he learned that hunger doesn't wait. His father had left long ago, and his mother was trapped in an abusive relationship, bruised and broken, both physically and mentally. Their home, if it could be called that, was a crumbling apartment with peeling paint and cold floors. Some nights there was no food, some nights there was no electricity, but every night there was fear. In school, he was silent. His clothes were torn, his shoes mismatched, and his eyes always searching for help, for kindness, for anything. But teachers didn't look too closely. Other students made fun of him. Nobody asked why he never smiled. No one noticed the bruises under his sleeves or the way he flinched at loud sounds. He became invisible. And when a child becomes invisible to the world, that child begins to believe they are worth nothing. It started with a candy bar. He was 8 and starving. He saw it on a shelf, grabbed it, and ran. No one caught him. No one even noticed. That small act, driven by hunger, planted a seed. He realized that no one was watching. No one cared. Then came a fight. Another boy had mocked his mother. In a flash of rage, he picked up a stick and hit him hard, too hard. Blood spilled. But again, the world stayed silent. No one came to guide him, to tell him what was right or wrong. He was punished at school, yes, but at home he was beaten even harder. Pain became routine. Violence became normal. By the time he turned 10, his heart had already hardened. The innocence was gone, not because he was born evil, but because no one ever taught him love. Society didn't fail to protect him. It never even tried. This is how a small, helpless child began his journey toward becoming something else. Not a monster, not yet, but a soul slipping further into the darkness, step by unnoticed step. By the age of 11, the boy had stopped hoping for change. The world had taught him that kindness was a myth and survival was everything. So, when the streets opened their arms, he walked straight into them, naive, desperate, and already damaged. In his neighborhood, danger didn't hide. It wore gold chains, drove loud cars, and laughed in the face of the law. The older boys, some just in their late teens, were the kings of the block. They had money, respect, and fear. They noticed the boy, alone, angry, and eager to belong. And they knew exactly what to do. At first, it was small errands. "Hold this bag," they said, stuffing it with drugs. "Deliver this package." He didn't ask questions. They gave him cash, food, sometimes even clothes. It felt like family. For the first time in his life, he felt seen. Soon, the stakes grew higher. He was taught how to steal, phones, wallets, even break into cars. "You're too young to go to jail," they told him. "If you get caught, you'll be out in no time." He believed them. Why wouldn't he? No one else had ever given him guidance. These street mentors became his teachers. They handed him a gun when he was 12. "Just in case," they said, smiling. He didn't hesitate. Meanwhile, the system, those meant to protect children like him, was nowhere to be found. Social workers had visited his home once, saw the mess, heard the shouting, and never returned. The school had given up on him after too many suspensions. The police? They knew his name, but never his story. He became another file, another statistic. By 13, he had been involved in multiple thefts, drug runs, and even armed robbery. The line between right and wrong had completely disappeared. He wasn't evil. He was shaped by neglect, trained by criminals, and fueled by a system that looked the other way. The saddest part? No one ever tried to save him. He didn't choose this life. It was the only one that welcomed him. The streets gave him purpose, even if it was built on crime and chaos. The path was set, not by a single choice, but by hundreds of moments where someone could have stepped in, but didn't. Every journey into darkness has a point of no return. For this boy, it came in a flash of rage, or perhaps fear. At just 14, he committed his first major crime. Not a petty theft, not a street scuffle. This time, someone died. It wasn't planned. It never is the first time. Sometimes it's a moment of panic. Sometimes it's years of pain exploding all at once. For him, it was both. A rival gang member had been threatening him for weeks. Older, stronger, and cruel. The boy tried to ignore it, tried to avoid him, but on one cold night, things spiraled. Words turned into shoving. A gun was pulled. Maybe the boy was defending himself. Maybe it was revenge. Maybe he just snapped. The details blurred, but the outcome was crystal clear. A bullet fired. A life ended. Blood on his hands. Silence followed. He didn't run, not at first. He stood there, frozen, the weight of what he had done crashing down on him. The sirens came minutes later, and just like that, his name, once unknown, was everywhere. The police paraded him like a trophy. The media swarmed in. Headlines screamed, "Child killer," "Teen terror," and "Born to be bad." No one asked about the years of neglect, the abuse, the poverty. No one cared that this was a broken child shaped by broken systems. All they saw was a monster with a baby face. He was arrested that same night. No comforting words, no warm blanket, just cold cuffs, cold stares, and cold bars. The courtroom was no better. Though still legally a minor, he was tried as an adult. The prosecution painted him as a dangerous psychopath. The media echoed every word. No one defended the boy behind the crime, the scared, wounded child who never stood a chance. There was no mercy, only judgment. In one instant, his fate was sealed. The boy who once stole candy to survive was now labeled a killer. And the world, instead of asking how it got to this point, simply locked him away. But behind those prison walls, a darker transformation began. Because the moment he pulled that trigger, the last pieces of his innocence died, and what replaced them was something colder, tougher, and far more dangerous. Prison is supposed to correct, to reform, to offer a second chance. But for a 14-year-old boy thrown into the brutal world of a juvenile detention center, it became a place of transformation, but not the kind anyone hoped for. From the moment he entered, he was no longer seen as a child. No one called him by his name. He was the killer, the animal, the problem. And the system treated him accordingly. Inside those cold, gray walls, kindness was weakness. Fear ruled everything. The guards didn't protect, they punished. Older inmates preyed on the younger ones. Fights were daily, screams were common, and pain was constant. The boy who had already known suffering on the streets now experienced a new kind of hell, where every day was a battle to survive. He learned fast. If he cried, he got beaten. If he stayed quiet, he was targeted. So he adapted. He fought back. He stopped feeling. He stopped caring. He started hurting others before they could hurt him. The lines between self-defense and cruelty began to blur. Slowly, the scared child was replaced by something else, something colder, sharper, more dangerous. Books were replaced with fists. Therapy was replaced with isolation. No one helped him channel his pain. Instead, that pain festered. It turned into anger, into hatred. Not just for the people inside, but for the entire world outside. The system that ignored him, the adults who failed him, and the society that branded him a monster before ever offering him a hand. By the time he was 16, he was no longer just surviving. He was dominating. Other inmates feared him. Guards kept their distance. The child who once flinched at loud sounds now didn't blink at the sight of blood. He wasn't rehabilitated. He was reshaped, not into a better version of himself, but into exactly what the world had always accused him of being, a beast, a product of abandonment, forged in violence, driven by revenge. In his mind, humanity had no place. Compassion was a lie. All that mattered was power, control, survival. And as the gates of the juvenile center closed behind him, and he was transferred to an adult prison, one thing was certain. He was no longer the boy who walked in. He was something else entirely. He is no longer a child. The innocence in his eyes is long gone. replaced by a cold, calculating stare. His face, once soft with youth, is now hard with scars and silence. He doesn't speak unless necessary. He doesn't smile. He doesn't trust. The world taught him that emotions are a weakness, and weakness gets you killed. At 21, he's known more violence than most people see in a lifetime. He moves like a machine, disciplined, distant, dangerous. Inside prison, he commands respect. Inmates follow his lead. Guards approach with caution. His name carries weight, not because of who he is, but because of what he's become. A cold-blooded criminal, a leader of chaos, a man feared more than understood. But if you look closer, beyond the tattoos, beyond the criminal record, beyond the headlines, you'll see something deeper. His story isn't just about crime, it's about abandonment, neglect, a system that failed at every level. He was not born a killer. He was born into poverty. He was raised in fear. He was shaped by violence. The people who should have protected him, family, teachers, social workers, police, either looked away or looked down on him. And in that silence, a child unraveled. His life is a living testimony of everything society refuses to see. That monsters are not born, they're made. That the system doesn't just punish crime, sometimes it manufactures it. The question is no longer, why did he become a criminal? The real question is, could anyone have stopped it? What if someone had fed him instead of ignoring his hunger? What if someone had listened instead of labeling him a problem? What if just once someone had shown him real love? Today, he sits behind bars, serving life for multiple crimes, and the world continues to whisper about how dangerous he is. But maybe the most dangerous thing isn't him. Maybe the real danger is a society that creates people like him and then acts surprised when they explode. He wasn't just failed, he was forgotten. And now, he's the result. Not a monster, not a myth, just a broken boy turned machine by a system that never cared to fix him. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real crime.